all the females that I talk to anyway seem to feel like their ex is a narcissist, and all the men that Thomas talked to say, well, my crazy ex-wife calls me a narcissist.
Yeah.
And so,
but she's a drama queen.
Yeah. And so women are often labeled, borderline personality disorder, different things like that. And I think men are labeled narcissist a lot. And women are labeled narcissists too. And we're all narcissistic to a certain point.
You might be a narcissist.
I might be. You might be a narcissist.
I'm
that
not
might be my problem.
Let me chime in if you would. So, in thinking about this problem, the question is you've got two otherwise normal people that for some reason have high conflict, and they have conflict around the children, and the conflict harms the children, and their attitudes towards one another harm the children. Right. Because when they're angry at the other spouse, the children can sense that, and they tend to align with whoever is whoever's caring for them. They align with that person, and they feel like they have to please that person and side with them against the other parent. Right. And this is a problem, that happens over and over again. And in my view, the people that are successful in breaking this cycle or this feedback loop are people that know how to behave and stop this. I guess what I'm trying to say is what I said in session 1 or in the very first podcast. This depends on you. It's tempting to point at the narcissist and say, he's doing this and he's doing that, and he's driving me crazy, and he lies all the time, and he pushes my buttons, and he's mean to the kids, and not look at yourself. Right. Okay. And by the same token, on the other side, from the guys you hear, well, she's alienating the children. Right. She's aligning them with her. She won't let me see them. She talks bad about it. Right. She manipulates, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as you're pointing towards someone else, right, you're not dealing with what you really have control over, which is you. And that's what I'd like to help people do, because there are some very easy ways to break this cycle that have nothing to do with what they're doing. Right. But have everything to do with how you're reacting. Right. Right. And this is a lot of what I start working on when I start working with coaching clients. Is the issue is, even if the other person is crazy or they're a narcissist or they're borderline or they're a drama queen or they're whatever label you want to put on it, even if they are, the question isn't, what are all the things that's wrong with them so that I can get the court to order them to stop behaving that way. Yeah, right. Which is what we see a lot, or change how they are by, I'm just, a lot of the women I work with say are kind of like, have this, their approach is to try to be logical. Well, if I just try to infuse my logic into this person, right, yeah, then they're going to change. And it's like, well, infusing the logic didn't work during the marriage, and this is where you are. So why do you have this concept that it's going to work now? Right. And when they are, the court obviously can't control that person's behavior. And so the only thing you really can control is you and how you react. Right. And you can change the relationship dynamic by changing what you're doing. Right. I think you can flip the whole thing. And right, whether you're on one side or the other doesn't right, matter. Mm-hmm. You can flip this. And I think we have to go back to a basic understanding of human behavior. And we have to say, why do people do what they do? You can point the finger all you want to and say this person's a narcissist, this person's whatever label you want to put on that sort of what we're calling the beast, yeah, for lack of a better label. But when you are being reactive to them like that and you're doing all those things, there's some payoff for you. Yeah. And
I can remember, I've told this story probably before if you listened to a lot of the podcasts, but I remember going into the my therapist's office. I started therapy before the divorce was over, when I sort of knew it was falling apart and I didn't really understand fully what was happening. And I suspected my husband was having an affair, but I didn't have any proof at that time, and we were still together for all intents and purposes. And then, so I was seeing her, and she said she thought that he was probably having an affair or on the verge of having an affair. And once it kind of came out over the course of the first few months of seeing her that he actually was having an affair, he and I went in for one session. It was like at the very beginning. And I remember we were each sitting on separate couches. Like, I was sitting on one couch, he was sitting on the other. And I was ranting and raving about how he's hurt me and had affairs and done all these things and blah, blah, blah. And, she said, and I said, I know there's problems and I know I have some responsibility in this, but I'm not the person that I didn't cope with it by going off and having an affair.
Right.
And she said, do you feel like that makes you a better person than him? And I very emphatically said, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Right.
And this is way before, obviously this has been about 17 years ago now. So this is long before I gained any of this wisdom that we're trying to impart in this episode. And, the problem wasn't, that in itself was the problem for me. Do you feel like that makes you a better person? Yes. That was part of my payoff.
Right.
That was part of my payoff of being with someone.
It gave you a self-esteem boost.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Someone who was like this. I had, I got a self-esteem boost from being a better person that didn't do this, from, taking the higher road, right, or from, just
right,
him behaving poorly and me feeling superior, whatever it was. That was
it's kind of almost a martyr complex in a way.
Sort of. Yeah. It's almost like the guilt feels good, almost kind of like weird thing.
Like, because you're a better person because you didn't have the affair.
I didn't have an affair. That's right. So
I didn't leave you. I just, so I would I'm
going to stay present and just be difficult to live with. I'm not going to go have an affair. Therefore, I'm a better person.
Right. And I think self-esteem drives the other person as well.
Right.
I think the narcissist is driven by a feeling that he needs to prevail in the situation emotionally. So this person is if I can reduce her, so the heart says, I don't think they do this calculus in their heads.
No. It's unconscious. Yeah.
Right. But the idea is if she's a quivering wreck, then that makes me look like
I'm the conqueror.
Yeah, or I'm the calm, sensible, logical one.
Yeah. That's what you do. You get like, I'm not saying you're a narcissist, but when we have arguments, a lot of times you get.
So you're calling me a narcissist?
You get super calm and like you have this condescending tone to your voice, and you just get super calm and rational. And it's like, I'm angry, and then you're like, well, that's really too bad, Tammy.
It sounds like
you're really upset by this whole thing. Yes, I am. Like
right. So I'm lucky to be alive. In other words, I get that.
We tend to think that the other person is doing what they're doing to hurt us.
Right. And your gals and you and me, by the way, we all feel like we're fighting for our lives.
Right.
Why is that? And that's why the conflict is so heated. That's why it sometimes results in violence, because we're fighting for our very life. In other words, if you destroy my self-worth, you've destroyed me.
Right.
And so if you think about it, that's in a way the source of the conflict. But each one of us in a way is engaged in a pitched battle and the stakes are really high. And the thing is, the more you behave in a way that pays off his self-esteem, the more he's going to do it. If you increase the payoff, the beast gets bigger.
Right.
That's where the idea of feed the beast comes from.
Starving the beast.
Or starving the beast.
We're trying to starve the beast.
Not feed the beast.
Not feed the beast. But what most people are doing is feeding the beast.
Right. On both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is why, like, one of the biggest things, the biggest areas I coach on, I would say, is communication with the other party.
Right.
So when people are in situations where they're using a Talking Parents or an Our Family Wizard or some sort of app for communication, a lot of my coaching clients, it'll be like, screenshot, here's what he said, what should I, or here's what she said, what do I say in response to this?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is just learning to shut the argument down. So what people are usually guilty of on both sides is this back and forth argument of like, well, I feel this way. And I, for instance, like, let's say we took the kid to the doctor and, the kid has, strep throat and, needs antibiotics. Okay. Let's just say that's the example. Then what happens is people start where they're saying things like, I got him back today and he's clearly been sick for 2 or 3 days, but since you obviously don't care enough to make an appointment for him at the doctor, I went ahead and made an appointment and I took him in and he in fact does have strep throat. So they confirmed what I said. They prescribed antibiotics and I've been giving them to him for the last 3 days. And I know you don't really care if he, gets healthy or not, or you think medicine is all just a joke and you're probably too lazy and drinking and like whatever the accusation is. There's all kinds of accusations. So he gets that message. Yeah. And he says, you're probably not going to give it to me anyway, but I put it in the backpack. Butthead. Right. Right. And then he's like, well, you're so overprotective. The kid didn't even start running a fever till the night before. I thought it was viral. I didn't realize he had strep. I would have definitely taken him to the doctor. Like, it just becomes this whole big paragraph by paragraph conversation. Right. And most of it is just emotions. And like in the first instance, the initial message should have been, took him to the doctor, has strep, prescribed antibiotics, they're in his backpack. Please continue the regimen. Right. I've already given him one for today. Right. Period. And then what that does is it eliminates the other party's ability to have what I call a hook. Yeah. A hook to come back and argue with you about. Right. And if you are dealing with a high conflict personality, like a narcissist or, a borderline or whatever the other person struggles with, then that is even more so true. Mm-hmm. That you are giving them things that they can pick apart and argue with you about. Right. And when he gets the former message, he feels superior to you because he's not the one that's coming unglued. Right. And so you usually get back this kind of derogatory, condescending stuff, mm-hmm. which causes the other person to freak out. But what you really need to do is starve the pleasure center that allows him to feel superior. Right. And that is the emotional content that's in the communication. Right. See, he needs to feel like he's hitting a brick wall whenever he tries to find out what you're feeling. Right. And the same thing is true if you have somebody who's creating drama. Right. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen the ladies do this, and they know how to attack. An attack I often see from the ladies is, well, this is just about money. This is not about the kid. Right. And that can hurt a guy's feelings. And but sometimes it's about the money. Right. Maybe he doesn't want to face that it's about the money. But it's about the money. Right. But in the end, she should not be communicating with him about how she feels about anything. Right. And I would advise him to do the same thing so that you have a very dry communication. There are things you have to communicate about. Right. If you have children, especially. Yeah. Like one of my kids when he was little would tiptoe all the time. Yeah. So if I had joint legal at that time, this happened before the divorce, but if I'd had joint legal at that time and needed dad to participate in taking him to a doctor to have that checked, then I would say I'm concerned. Because what I'm concerned says is I'm worried about the child. This doesn't say I'm blaming you.
Right.
That's what it avoids. So you could say, I'm concerned because I noticed that, Kevin is tiptoeing all the time. I don't know if you've noticed this at your house, but I think it might be good to take him to an orthopedist and have it checked out.
Right. And when you're saying I'm concerned, you're really making a statement about what you're seeing, not you're not blaming, like you said, and that's the trigger for the borderline.
Right.
Is the blame and the loss of the fear that they'll lose connection.
Right.
So if you want to avoid trying to blame them like the plague.
Right.
And then when they blame you, which is what's going to happen,
right.
you have to kind of suck that up.
Right. Right. And try to stay focused on the specific logistical issues around what you're trying to solve.
So the moral of the story is you can change the dynamic.
Right.
You can, with your own behavior, interrupt the feedback loop that causes this behavior to continue and escalate.
Right.
And you do that by identifying what the payoff is for the other person.
And yourself.
And yourself. What is the payoff for you in this dynamic? Mm-hmm. Because it takes two to tango. Mm-hmm. And then take away the payoff.
Right.
Starve the beast and get ready for the beast to get hungry.
Mm-hmm. And in recognizing your own payoff, be prepared to deal with that.
Right. Yes, that's true too.
Once I recognize that part of my issue is this makes me feel superior, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's a little embarrassing to even say. Yeah. I'm saying on a podcast, so obviously a lot of people are going to hear it, but it's a little embarrassing to even say that made me feel superior. In retrospect, but at the time I was very adamant that it did. I didn't see the issue with that. But now I would be saying to myself, how can you get your self-esteem or that boost in a positive way?
Right.
Where can that come from that's positive, that doesn't involve being involved in this destructive
Maybe by starting a business and starting coaching
other women, right?
And being part of the solution rather than part of the problem. There's a lot of things. Doing good works does increase self-esteem.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's really good. So. Okay, so don't forget to starve your beast if you have one, and that's the only way to make
Which reminds me that I'm hungry.
It's the only way to make him go away, so I better feed my beast here, I guess, if I want to.
It's time to feed the attorney.
All right, so if you're listening to us if you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to rate and review us and click subscribe. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as more videos like this come out, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.